Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aaron Smith, and I'm the CEO of EPA. And I'm joined, as always, by Nancy Bakeman. And we are introducing someone today who needs no introduction, Sam Rashkin, for our second series in the Houses 2.0. This is what is good housing design and how to consistently deliver it. And Sam, I just want to put in a plug because you let me sit in with one of your working groups and go through these plans. And I will tell you, if you're looking to refine your plan, if you're looking for fresh ideas on your plans, if you're looking for great energy savings on your plans, please, Sam will have at the end. He's going to be at the EBA Summit. He's got some great workshops coming up. Please order the book, but it's a breath of fresh air in our industry. And Sam, we're always pleased to have you with us. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sam. And of course, we have the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. You can put questions in chat. I'd prefer them in Q&A. You're going to do what you want to do anyway, which is fine with me. And I will present those questions to Sam as we go through, and we'll have a little bit of time at the end for questions as well. So Sam, we'll turn it over to you.
Hey, thanks, Aaron and Nancy. It's so great to join you all again, and particularly the second in the series of three webinars we're doing based on Housing 2.0. Let me start this one by asking you all to think about when you watch an amazing sporting star achieve something so crazy at the end of a game, a match, a tournament, whatever it may be. I'm in the throes of watching NBA playoffs and French Open, and when you see someone just do something amazing and then they're interviewed at the end, they're asked, how did you, in the heat of that incredible moment, come up with such an amazing touchdown, putt, field goal, basket, home run, whatever it was, or how did you do it in the moment? And they always answer the same way. I was focused on outcome, not on the outcome, I was focused on the process. And too often we're focused on outcome and on a process, and we don't get the results we want. So today's session is about boldly suggesting that good housing design is something that can be defined and achieved consistently with a process. And so we'll run that through you today and see if you agree. But most importantly, my belief is that high performance home builders and professionals have to be industry leaders, not just in high performance. You also have to be industry leaders in good design. Design is absolutely a critical user expectation. So let's go through this, and the outline for today is we'll start first with a quick background on the source material for what drives a lot of the content today, Housing 2.0. Then we'll go into this concept that we're in this amazing user experience imperative that keeps accelerating at an exponential rate. And then third, what we'll cover is how to optimize the design housing user experience. We're going to boldly define what is good housing design and how it can be optimized. And then lastly, we'll talk about how do we optimize good housing design with consistency. How do we do it and embed it in what we do as housing professionals? So that's the outline for today. And let's first start with the Housing 2.0 background. Now, life's a journey, and so has Housing 2.0 been a journey for me personally. I got that call in California back in 1994 or so, 1993, and got hired to do the Energy Star Certified Home Program, beginning really in 1995. And that was been the amazing gift of a lifetime for me personally. But most importantly, it put me in, I think, my lane. I love housing, and I love making housing better. And so one day, coming back from an Energy Star traveling roadshow about, I think, version 2 and training hundreds and hundreds of builders, like a lightning bolt, I was hit with this almost epiphany that no matter how much success I was having with Energy Star and our team and all the amazing collaborators with Energy Star, no matter how much success we're having, our builders were not going to be that much more successful. And the reality for me, or the realization for me, was retooling the US housing industry. In fact, there are 5 critical housing user experiences. And if all we do is help builders be more efficient, that doesn't get the job done. So compiled all this information and retooling, and then began an accidental research project, bringing about 20, 25 builders around the table across 5 straight years, 4 workshops a year, vetting, feedback, ongoing research, and iterations to keep fine-tuning the foundational concepts of retooling. And then COVID hit, and that became a gift in a way. I got to do Housing 2.0, to package everything we learned in 5 years of that kind of research outreach to builder executives. So that's what this is all about. The book itself has over 400 pages, hundreds of graphics, over 360 citations. By the way, the first book only had 60 citations, just to tell you how much more in-depth research has gone into this book. And there are 7 amazing guest expert essays from many of the friends of IBA and my friends, who I think are just absolute world-class talent in terms of so many facets of housing. So the book is out there now. And the key process I think the book lays out chapter by chapter by chapter is always the same. First thing you want to do is invest in experts and special features that you know are a sure thing, transforming the housing user experience. So if you know lighting or landscaping or views or performance or health or whatever it may be, technology are absolute transformative experiences, invest in them. The key part is the second step, which is to use that expertise and the Housing 2.0 optimization lens to extract cost savings by minimizing waste and complexity. And then the result is actually cost savings and all that added value, experiences and owner savings that result in more value for lower cost. And that's a good, profitable business model to sell better homes for lower cost. Okay, so that's what we do, and we cover it basically with a learning system. When you learn anything, the first key part of learning is what is the context for why you're learning the subject matter, what are the key concepts that make it work, and what are the skills and best practices that help you apply it. And we cover all that in the book and workshops. Then you need practice. You know, if I take a golf lesson and then don't do anything with it for weeks and then come back and do lesson number 2, lesson number 1 was a waste. So practice is learned by doing, and the action groups that Aaron mentioned were basically our way of getting collaborative small groups to sit around and work together applying these best practices. And finally, for continuous improvement and sustain, which is about sustaining excellence, really, we have a thought leader series where I abuse my favorite friends and experts to keep building and building on the content. So this is what we do. The workshops start with week 1, the future of housing. The next 5 weeks are all the skills around optimizing community design, performance, quality, and sales. And then the goal here is to learn to build better homes for lower cost. And coming up, we have a 6-week virtual workshop with Green Builder Media starting May 26th. The next one is November 3rd. We have a 1-day in-person workshop, which is compressed partial workshop at PCBC on June 23rd. And then we have a 1-day in-person IBA High Performance Home Summit workshop on September 19th. So a lot of this will be available to you under lots of different ways of doing it. And today we're going to focus on optimizing design. So a lot of content's derivative of week number 3, what we cover. And I'll mention the action groups are really special. We have 1 or 2 slots left before we start the next action group. And this is about really making it work for you individually, customizing the framework so it's for your company. We all have different tolerances for change. We have different preferences as builders. We have different climate conditions, demographics, all sorts of other factors. So what we do in the first meeting is customize a framework. You don't have to do everything we recommend, but you should have a framework that defines your business. Then you bring in some designs week 2. We benchmark the designs to your framework. Then week number 3, you come back with optimized designs based on the benchmarking, then final designs based on the benchmarking. In all these time, we're kind of collaborating as a group. It really gets really close and cordial. And finally, when you have the final design, you go back, do the math, tabulate cost savings and added value. Every one of the builders come through that we've worked with have tabulated tens of thousands of cost savings and added value for their individual design. So I encourage you all to consider that. This is a thought leader series scheduled for this year. Now we're coming up on June 8th with the future of home comfort. Al Lang from Rio will talk about what I believe is a game-changing HVAC distribution system that's just amazing and how it works. And we'll talk about peer reviews in July, and then finally year review in November. So let's jump right in with today's webinar core content and start with the user experience imperative. And essentially, let's all agree that performance is a must-have. The train has left the station. Look at codes, policies. You look at over 30,000 homes certified to zero energy and zero ready in Canada and US. You look at just the better experience that comes from zero energy homes and healthy homes. That train has left the station. The key lesson here for me is that it's not enough. As great and as important as those are, is if you're not giving great communities, daylight, fresh air, outdoor living, storage, smart home technology, work at home capabilities, learn at home capabilities, advanced lighting, color. This is just a small partial list of user expectations that are increasing exponentially. And that all are, the other ones are all derivative of good design. So performance is a great start. I want to get all my favorite high performance builders to be design leaders as well. And the indication that we're in trouble, I did this count just, I think, 2 weeks ago, getting ready for these presentations. And I counted over, I think, 150 different reviews for Consumer Affairs website that publishes peer reviews of builders. There are other websites that do peer reviews, but those are paid for by the builder. I like the Consumer Affairs website as one that I trust quite a bit. And here's the stunning finding from all my tabulations. Over 75% of the peer reviews are below 2 stars. And that's a real crisis for the housing industry. They're in a user experience imperative, but when you look at builder reviews, it's stunning how small the percentage is that are good. And in fact, a huge percentage that is 2 stars or lower. So we got to get focused on user experience. And there are tremendous empirical evidence that this makes a huge difference. Steve Jobs' famous quote, if you keep your eye on the profit, you're going to skimp on the product. But if you focus on making really great products, then the profits will follow. And what he means by great products, I have this in red, is products with great user experiences. And that's what Apple's all about. And you take all their product, fit it on one reasonable sized conference room table, and realize that company with just those products has more money in the bank than the US Treasury. So that's one just conceptual way of looking at it. The data is even more compelling. When you look at 11-year stock performance from 2007 to 2017, one study found that the user experience leaders were 3 times greater performance, financial performance, than user experience laggards. What a just resounding difference for being a laggard versus a leader. Even compared to the S&P 500, user experience leaders were over 50% or about 50% more profitable. The other key metric for user experience leaders is their resilience. They're 3 times more resilient than laggards. And that means that they have shallower troughs and quicker recovery during recessionary periods. And of course, we can all agree that the housing industry has impressive recession periods. We just finished one, 2007 to 2010. If you go to my future of housing presentations, you'll see I'm forecasting very quickly. We're just on the heels of another significant housing recession, not as bad as 2007, 2010. And if you look north to our neighbors in Canada, they're already on a very significant downturn in terms of their housing industry. Sales dropping, prices dropping. So, you know, resilience is just a huge advantage and another compelling reason to be a user experience leader. So what do we do about optimizing the design housing user experience? And that's what the bulk of today's session is going to cover. Now, what I'm going to do I'm going to kind of give myself a hard stop on the content of this section right about at the end of the hour. I don't want to get too far ahead and tie you all up too long. So I'll do the best I can to get through as much as I can. But as I go through this, you'll see that there's just amazing, simple, basic best practices that just will help you consistently get great designs. So the first thing I want to share with you is that there's this larger framework from Housing 2.0. It speaks to 5 key housing user experiences, 19 strategies, and 150 plus best practices. So the first key user experience is community, and entails 3 strategies. Each segment of the pie represents a strategy here, and there are 21 best practices within those strategies. Then there's design, and that has 5 segments, 5 strategies with 50 best practices. Then comes performance, which has 5 strategies and 42 best practices. Most of you focus on 3 of these slices, which are building science, health, and energy efficiency. The other 2, water and resilience, I think are equally important. Hopefully more and more of you will add those 2 to your performance solutions. Then after performance, the next key experience is quality with 3 strategies and 20 best practices. And finally, there's sales with 3 strategies and 21 best practices. So here we are today. We're going to focus on design. It's one of the 5 key housing user experiences, but often it's the experience that creates the sales. Community is probably up there, but performance, quality, that's how you keep, retain, and get loyal customers. Community design is how you kind of get to the sale for most buyers. So what is the design framework and what's it look like? And when I go do Housing 2.0, what I always do for each key user experience is I start with the why. It's a core purpose that drives that experience as a critical must-have. Then what is it? What is the optimization that it's trying to achieve? And then the how, what are the strategies that will get you to that optimization? So in the case of design, the core purpose is that space matters. And that means space outside, space inside, and all the details are all transformative. And so what do we optimize to make space work for us? And the first is we optimize location. And the key and strategy for doing that is fit to site. Then we optimize nature. And the strategy for doing that is natural comfort. Then we optimize space, interior space. And the way we do that is right sizing. And then we optimize form, and we do that with simple. And lastly, we optimize function, and we do that with integrated systems. So these 5 strategies are basically the architecture behind how we consistently get to great designs. So let's start with fit to site. What I want to highlight for you at the top is this tab. All the strategies run here, and we're now on fit to site. So you'll be able to place yourself with that tab where we are. So here's a strategy fit to site, and they're top tier and second tier best practices. Top tier in the second column, and the granular second tier best practices in the right column. So the first best practice for fit to site is optimize views. And you want to optimize natural views and design views. Now, what I want to highlight before I do any other of the best practices is that views trump everything else. Virtually every design project should begin by looking at the view opportunities and optimizing those view opportunities. Everything else follows after that. Then comes optimized drainage, which is with grading, siding, setback from slopes. The details are in the book. This one I'm not going to spend much time. Everyone should know that you don't get drainage wrong. All you need is one customer with a wet basement to completely destroy his and her user experience. So just do drainage right, but the details in the book. Regionally appropriate materials is the next one. I'm not going to cover it today because of time. But basically, you want to select materials that are appropriate to the damage functions prevalent in any location. So you need materials that are freeze-thaw resistant in cold climates. You need materials that are corrosion resistant in coastal climates with heavy concentrations of salt air. You need materials that are ultraviolet light resistant, where you have intense sunlight. And lastly, you need materials that are pest resistant in locations that are subject to termite infestations and other kinds of pests that might eat wood materials. So that's a matter of just being appropriate to the location. I'm not going to cover that as well. I'll spend a little time with optimizing community connection. That's done with rear garages, front porches, and shared backyards. And again, you're not supposed to do everything. What I'm laying out are sure things. If you do these things, that will be a better experience in terms of the goal. If you want better community and you have shared backyards, you'll have better opportunities for connection. If you have big 5 to 6 foot fences around every property, you won't. But maybe that won't be a priority for your market, your demographics, where you're located. The idea, again, at the end, we'll talk about what you do moving forward, is to customize what I'm showing you today. But I'm going to tell you, with 5 years of vetting, I can say with confidence, virtually there's consensus. These practices do optimize user experiences. Okay, is this home fit the site? Everyone should recognize it, by the way. This is Frank Lloyd Wright's Flowing Water. It's in Mill Run, Pennsylvania, in the Eastern Highlands. And without question, it's one of the most beautiful buildings probably ever built. They took materials to the absolute limits, post-tension concrete with the largest cantilevers and biggest spans. And it just sits beautifully in this forested setting, which is just one problem. You can't afford to live in this building as a homeowner. Eastern Highlands may have the highest snowfall capture up in the entire continental US, so it's right near the top. And essentially, this design is a big snow capture design. And lots of stresses are going on. One is we have slabs over unconditioned temperatures and slabs over conditioned space. So this slab may be seeing 0 degrees or below, and the slab over the conditioned space is seeing 70 degrees. Then you have freeze-thaw cycle with snow being collected, melting as the sun comes out during the day, then freezing at night, and tremendous strain on the water protection layers. And so over time, the maintenance on this building has become exorbitant. Just the cracking and all the wear and tear from the damage functions that are occurring in this location with this design are just horrific. So it was donated to the Park Service, and they invest millions to take care of it, which they can do because it's a mecca for visitors to come see this amazing piece of architectural sculpture, not residential design. So you kind of get the point that something that's iconic in architecture may not actually be fit to site, as this building is surely not. So what we want to do, as I mentioned, every time in projects is you start with the views. And if you have natural views, leverage them. And if you don't have natural views, you want to create design views. And it's all based on my rule that landscape architecture trumps home architecture. As a recovering architect, which is something I have to acknowledge and to admit. And it's our job to work the problem, to make sure that every home has views. So obviously, this is something you do without even questioning. If you have beautiful water views, you maximize them and capture them. If you have beautiful vistas, you maximize and you capture them. But what we do normally is outside of that, we build subdivisions, we build a home, and we say to the homeowner, you guys go at it. You know, here's your property, you go figure out how to create a view. And I'm suggesting that there's 2 options I would build into the business of home building, whatever form you may engage it in. That one is you can either offer landscape upgrade. We actually provide the landscaping. Not going to be a very willing option for most builders. The other thing to do is just provide the expert landscaping plans. Actually go and make sure that your home buyers are equipped to get great views. So you may offer landscaping when you build a model and say we can provide this as well, or provide this as well, whatever it may be. But more often, and even in climates that are difficult, like hot desert climates, if you can bring in the expertise to offer xeriscaping and landscaping that knows that is optimized for that location, that's probably a skill set most buyers won't have. And if you do this, it's just a huge advantage. It'll look great and also be low maintenance for your buyers. But if you're not willing to offer the upgrade, it's a small investment, particularly for larger production builders they have 5 models and they have, lots are probably within a certain basic geometry. Have landscape architects kind of develop plans for lots that leverage, expert choices for shrubs, for plantings, for irrigation, for hardscaping. All those things done by an expert are transformational compared to when we ourselves as lay landscape people go out and try to do it. And so provide the expert plans is my recommendation to builder. If landscaping does trump architecture, as I suggest, it will be a better advertisement, billboard, whatever you want to call it for your business if your homes have great landscaping. It's a great investment to make. Okay, and also in optimizing views, a lot of the times you're going to have to think out of the box. You just can't go to the routine solution. So I have a narrow lot on the waterfront, and I'm going to build a multi-family project. The normal traditional solution just slap down a double loaded corridor, put the apartments on either side. And the problem with this is there's a building on the ocean, and so the double loaded corridor kind of splits it in half, and you have half the apartments with a great view of the ocean, the other half with a horrible view looking across the street at another apartment building and a busy street. And so what you wind up is this, with half the apartments with a great view, half with a really bad view. And if these apartments are worth X on the street side, the apartments on the ocean side are probably worth 2 or 3X. And so you're losing all that value, the asset value lost because only half your units have the great view is substantial. So when you want to think out of the box, this is a solution borrowed from Le Corbusier, project famous where he did a corridor every 3 floors. I do it every 2 floors because for disability or universal design purposes and others, you can't have everyone use stairs. So you have 1-story apartments facing the ocean and 2-story apartments facing the ocean. Now, a couple of things happen. One is you wind up with a corridor every other floor. So all this space goes back into marketable use space for your apartments. That has more value than a hallway. The second thing is your elevator only stops every other floor, so it's also lower cost for the elevator. And you have 100% with a great view. This is how it lays out. You have your 2-story apartments on the street side. So that's the first floor you come in, a bedroom, a stairwell, and a bathroom. And then on the front side, you have your 1-story apartments with bedrooms and living spaces, bedrooms and living spaces. And then on the floor with no elevator, you have a contiguous second floor of your 2-story apartments. And so you have your master bedroom, your master bath, your laundry, your half bath, your kitchen, your dining, your eating, normal layout as you would expect going across. And so 100% with great views. And the same thing happens if I have a deep site instead of a narrow site. You'll often see this layout and the balconies kind of you're looking over each other. The views aren't that great. Even these balconies are kind of blocked by these often. And so that's just the traditional U-shape or separated buildings on a deep lot. And I would suggest if you take view as a dominant factor, that's where you start. You might wind up with something like this. On the sawtooth design, every home has a complete unblocked view of the ocean on this side as well. And then I throw in these open spaces, some pickleball courts and landscaping just for playing around. But you kind of get the idea that once you understand the absolute force of having great views on the economics and satisfaction of your buyers, then you just let that drive all your design. Okay, one place where views are really challenged is the townhome. I just took a Google Earth zoom into one townhome project near us, and it's always the same. You have these yards in the back and then the townhomes next to each other. And the reason that they're so challenged for view is they have a very narrow dimension in the back facing the yard. And then the postage stamp backyard winds up being almost neglected. And you can see from one yard to the next on the second floor, so you have no privacy. So it kind of looks like this when you're looking from one house to the next, and people wind up almost just neglecting, not using them. And I'm saying they're almost a waste. Why not get rid of it? Now you can, in some cases, provide, again, expert designs for how to make more of these backyards for townhomes. But again, only one room, very limited access to this from the whole floor plan. So what we can do is repurpose all that postage stamp backyard space. And what we do is instead do an L shape, we get 6 instead of 4 homes. And then with this space that's repurposed, find a space to make up the difference. So we always have the 6 units on the same square foot of land that we had with the old row house design. And the reason this is such a compelling way to get to view is you have a quiet side, so you have privacy. From this unit to this unit, it's completely private. Then you have the active side, and you have all these spaces around the entire floor plan now with access to a view, the courtyard. Then you have the center entry, which is a secret sauce, so that I have a full front room without having to walk through it, and a full front porch without having to walk through it. And so I found a project that actually did this after I put this down. And in Alabama, of all places, Pike Road, the Waters, there's the exact layout. You have the garage in back, but you come in to a middle entry, a full room, a full front porch, all these rooms off the view. And there's the actual project as constructed. I years later went and checked Zillow and found one of these homes was for sale. And I was a little disappointed in the courtyards themselves. I thought they were missing expert landscape design because they had the views and things were after. But when you do expert design, this is more kind of what I'm looking for, just where you really capture it. You also use bigger windows off the courtyard. Notice some of these windows aren't as big and there's too much wall that's not leveraging the view. So this is a much better way to now that you have the courtyard, to use the expert landscaping, have better views. Again, same thing, another townhouse courtyard, the L shape, the middle entrance, all the views. When you use expert landscaping, it trumps the architecture. That's always what I'll keep telling you. And the last thing we'll talk about on fit to site will be this concept about rear garages and front porches. Again, I think most people understand the value of front porches for community connection. When you want it, then you can sit there. Rear garages gets rid of what's called a pig snout design concept, where the garage dominates the front elevation. Again, creates a better community connection. The no rear yard concept or no rear fences is kind of tough for some regions to do, because the market preference seems to have gotten established for fencing in properties in California and a lot of the western states and southwestern states. So you have to kind of go with that as best you can. Okay, moving on now, we're at the next tab. The next strategy is natural comfort. And this has ancient origins. This is the cliff dwellings in Mesa Verde over a century, over a millennium ago, over 1,000 years ago. And what this culture did was they looked for these cave locations where they were facing direct south. And what they knew is they build these high thermal mass adobe block housing units in these cave settings. What would happen is the summer sun would be completely blocked by the cliff, and the nighttime cool temperatures would cool the mass, and you could be in these homes with full comfort all summer long. Then when winter came and the sun was lower, it would come in and heat the mass and heat the spaces through the window openings. And then at night, when it got cold again, the heat would emanate and create more comfort at night. They created total comfort with virtually no mechanical space condition. They figured this out over 1,000 years ago. Fast forward to Las Vegas, where 9 months a year it could be 100 degrees or warmer, and we're building glass blocks and effectively giving the finger to Mother Nature. The difference between this building and this building is that without any electrons or mechanical force, you thrive in this building. Without any electrons, you will die in this building in 9 months a year. If you don't get out of that building as fast as you can, you will die. And that's the difference. We're building spaces that, but for the brute force of electrons flowing through wires, we can't even survive in these buildings. And so it's really stunning when you look at this building, which is the US Department of Energy, my old digs, and realize this is the south elevation wall for this segment of the building. In contrast, this is the west wall, almost all windows. And we'll give a pass to the Department of Energy. This was originally built as a forestal building for the Department of Navy. It retained the name the forestal building when it got switched to the ERDA, Energy Research Development Authority under Carter, later to become the Department of Energy. But it's just remarkable that we would build a building that would have a solid face facing south of concrete. So we just seem to have forgotten what we learned 1,000 years ago. So here's the second strategy, natural comfort. And the first tier, best practices are natural heating, natural cooling, natural lighting, natural fresh air. And the second tier best practices are a bunch of design tools that get you to each one. Orientation, thermal mass, orientation, shading, thermal mass, cross ventilation, prevailing breeze orientation, cool roof, natural lighting is orientation and shading, and natural fresh air is cross ventilation and stack ventilation, prevailing breeze orientation. So let's show you basically some contrast. Here's a glare-free view where orientation is taken into account. And if you ignore orientation, basically you're just forced to close off the view. Why did you put the glass there in the first place, right? A little bit of daylight coming through, but essentially you lost the view and a lot of the daylight. Free heating and cooling, just by getting orientation correct, forget thermal mass and shading and so forth. This study done in California revealed that in coastal climates, you would save 47% on cooling and about 23% on heating just by orientation. On inland climates, you would save about 25% on cooling and about 17% on heating. And that's just by getting the orientation right. I remember I proposed a program when I worked at the California Energy Commission, where we would certify and give a label to every home simply based on orientation. You didn't have to do anything. If you are on a north-south facing lot, in other words, the front and the back, with the main elevations, they face north-south, we would give you a natural comfort certification, just to make it an issue in the MLS so that more developers would therefore want to offer more natural comfort lots and actually make the effort to create east-west streets with north-south facing homes. So that's, but you know, it's funny how I wound up at Energy Star always having a mindset for labeling homes. Comfort is amazingly enhanced with natural comfort. And that's because mean radiant temperature has 40% greater impact on perceived comfort than ambient air temperature. So the thermal mass and warm surfaces created in the winter and cool surfaces created in the summer were 40% more comfortable than if the ambient air is used to create comfort. So it's amazing enhancement on comfort when you get surface temperatures working for you. And natural light is a huge, huge benefit. It boosts vitamin D, it wards off seasonal depression, improves sleep and productivity. It's not surprising, you know, if your pet's like mine, that's where they like to hang out. So we know natural light is a huge benefit. And also, it also is better to live in. You know, on the left, natural light's optimized. On the right, without orientation and shading, natural light is not minimized. You're forced to keep the blinds closed. And the tendency for most homeowners is once they close the blinds once, they don't open and close during the day. They don't want to have the kind of burden of going in and changing on a daily basis. They tend to stay closed all the time. And you can just visually see it's stunning, the difference in spaces when you get view and natural daylight coming in. And fresh air, you know, you just, whenever we have 3, 4, 5 months or more in every climate, where when you can open the windows and bring in fresh air, it just feels, again, completely different. It's such a superior experience to have fresh air come in. So why natural comfort? It's all these user experiences we just covered: glare-free views, free heating and cooling, superior comfort with mean radiant temperature controls, natural light, fresh air. And again, this resilience, the fact that we thrive in the space even without mechanical heating and cooling. And that's thousands of dollars of estimated value in terms of better experience, in my estimation. So the biggest complaint I get is against doing this when I present to builders is I'm not getting north-south facing lots. And so my response is that by probability, 25% of the lots that you buy or you get in a subdivision have a south-facing rear elevation. 25% of the lots you have within tolerance a south-facing front elevation, which means 50% of your lots are ready for natural heating, natural cooling, natural fresh air, natural lighting. So have standard designs ready for those lots. And it's a great start. And it costs zero to do these. All these tools are free. So for instance, on an east-west lot, one of your designs could have a sawtooth configuration to bring light deep into the space. Since most of the living happens in the back towards the view, maybe have a design that captures the light and heat and brings it back, and captures the cooling and daylight as well and brings it back in the summer. And if you have a rear-facing south orientation, then just raise up that back part of the house to get as light and heating and cooling as deep into the space as possible. Just having great standard designs that are responsive to those two lot configurations and have various floor plans and excuse me, footprints that leverage that. Tools are, again, orientation, shading, thermal mass, prevailing breeze orientation, cross ventilation, and cool roofs. And this is how it basically works. For natural heating, you need solar orientation and thermal mass. For cooling, use all 6 of the design tools. For natural fresh air, prevailing breeze orientation, cross ventilation, and for lighting, again, solar orientation and solar shading. It's kind of a freebie that comes along with natural heating and natural cooling. And the reason for all this is just the path of the sun changes during the course of the year. In the summer, it rises in the northeast and it sets in the northwest, and has a much higher arc, so it can be shaded in the summer. In the winter, it rises in the north and southeast and it sets in the southwest. It has a much lower arc, and therefore it can penetrate the windows even with the shading because it's a much lower angle. It's very basic. And when you ignore it, basically the blinds are closed continuously. You lose the view that you put the window there for ostensibly in the first place. And when you do it right, this is what it looks like. This is a colleague from DOE, the NREL laboratory. He lived in Connecticut and he lived on the second floor of this house. The bottom was just a workshop and garage. But look at the winter image and all that daylight coming through and providing free heat. And then in the summer, you can see it's completely shaded and all the natural cooling, where on a hot day, let's say it will be without the shading 100 degrees or 90 degrees next to the window. Now it's 70 degrees, 80 degrees next to the window. So you kind of just get the idea. It's just simple, basic principles work. This is a house I actually designed in 1982. My first design for a new home when I moved to California. But again, you've seen the basic principles. I use wing walls to remove glare. So that I tend to use them a lot, just so I further ensure the view and daylight that I want. These are not skylights. These are batch water heaters that worked incredibly. This is the master bedroom and kitchen locations for each one. But you get the idea that everything's shaded, comfortable, the blinds are open, the views are there. Thermal mass storage is pretty basic. Essentially, the sun heats it. Rather than the space heating up, the material heats up. And then at night, when it gets cooler, the heat's released so that you have a much better balance, almost like natural thermal control in the home with the thermal mass. The rule of thumb is about 5 square feet of thermal mass for every square foot of south-facing window in the room. And also recognize the first 2 inches of thermal mass give you like 80% of the benefit of the thermal mass materials specific heat storage capacity. And it's easy to integrate in spaces sometimes with floors and masonry surfaces. Here's floors and counters and fireplaces. There's lots of ways of getting thermal mass in designs. And I had to leave out a lot of details on design solutions and techniques for natural ventilation due to time constraints. But I put this picture in just because when you see it done right and you see housing that can capture fresh air, it looks beautiful. And it also, again, feels better. It's really an entire different natural living experience. and a home that is designed to capture prevailing breezes. Now, the city that probably evidences this the most might be Charleston, South Carolina. It does so because it's the only one of the 5 Revolutionary era cities to suffer a massive economic collapse after the country got established. And essentially, where Philadelphia, Washington, New York, Boston were all torn down due to all the economic stimulus and growth that those cities were experiencing, this city was just an economic downturn, and all the structures remained to a point far into the future where people realized what a beautiful city it was in its natural design. So you have all these natural buildings just by happenstance of a economic collapse in Charleston, but they're beautiful in how they capture the prevailing breeze. Virtually, you have high windows, high and low openings. You have a narrow configuration for cross ventilation across the entire space. It's a tough climate in the summer for sure with the humidity, but during long stretches in the spring and fall, the air flowing through these buildings is really special. And so these designs are there, and it's a really great city to visit to see what natural comfort looks like when it's executed across like almost the entire city. And then we see natural cooling optimized versus not optimized in 2 cities. One is Melbourne, Australia, which is a lot of the southwestern Australian states do this flat roof configuration, even though it's like 110, 115 degrees for long stretches, spring, summer, fall. In contrast, Bermuda, where it gets incredibly hot, they use white roofs, and it looks beautiful. It's responsive, it's authentic. It is like maybe 30 degrees less heat coming through in terms of temperature. It's just the right solution. And it's just amazing just how regionally 2 places will take such different effective strategies for optimizing cooling with such a simple technique as a cool roof. Okay, we're in the 3rd strategy, which is right sizing. The 2 key things to do here are to leverage space and to enhance space. Those are the top tier best practices. For leveraging space, the lower tier best practices are optimizing geometry, layouts, eliminating combining rooms, minimal but generous circulation, built-in furniture. And for enhancing space, what we want to do is indoor-outdoor linkages, so spaces just appear bigger because of visual connection. Varying ceiling heights gives a perception of greater space. Kind of quality trim, hardware, and finishes make spaces feel more luxurious. Expert colors, lighting, all make spaces look bigger. And so first thing to realize is how much home size has increased. The average home in 1950 was under 1,000 square feet. And as of 2014, it increased almost 300% to 2,657 square feet. The average number of occupants shrunk 26% from 3.4 to 2.4. The net is that the square foot per occupant went from a little bit less than 300 to over 1,000, which is over a 360% increase in number of square feet per person. So we've really made houses bigger. And I'll submit, if you look at a lot of housing layouts as they've gotten bigger, the amount of wasted space has gotten bigger as well. Substantially more wasted space and substantially more complexity, which we'll talk about next. The best example to show the principle of right sizing is cars. Here's a 1970 and 2020 Chevy Impala. One has like 2 or 2.5 feet longer wheelbase, has twice the engine size. It's just way bigger. Yet you have the same amount of leg room, headroom, storage and capacity in the trunk. Yet the car on the right has like twice or 3 times the fuel economy, has better safety, has better handling, has less maintenance. Everything about this experience is superior to this experience, and yet it's so substantially smaller in size. Somehow we got smaller and better. And this is what we want to do with housing. So one of the first strategies is just optimize geometries. And I'll show how it works here with 2 floor plans for 1,500 square foot homes, 1-story homes. So you have 60 by 25 foot home that's 1,500 square feet, and a 37.5 foot by 40 foot home, approximating a square. And as you get more square, you get more efficient. So it winds up that the perimeter of the narrow home is 170 linear feet, and the more square home is about 155 linear feet. And using some rough numbers from RS means, which have gone up probably 50 to 100%, it's about $110 per linear feet of wall for both the framing and the foundation. And so if we're saving 15 linear feet, that's almost $2,000 of savings just by getting geometry right. The other dividend is with the wider backyard face, I have twice the views I have with the other design. And also I have 10 times more energy efficiency without with all the wall square footage savings. So I have less wall exposure and I have more views. So geometry makes a big difference. In the community optimization module, I'll show you how you can do a home footprint like this versus narrow lots in the same amount of area as a narrow lot community design plan. So we can do these views just by using shallower backyards, but there's ways to do this, and it's just a far more compelling design choice. Indoor outdoor linkages, we know already. We were preaching this 7-8 years ago in the very first retooling workshops, and of course now we know that outdoor living has become a must-have. So outdoor living spaces are absolutely essential. So this is less news breaking than it used to be when we were hammering it early in the retooling workshop series. But essentially, it's also highly impactful for making the inside look bigger. When you see these outdoor living spaces right adjoining, it makes the inside spaces feel bigger. And so outdoor living, just lots of ways of integrating it. It's almost a must-have, and I think most builders are figuring that out. No built-in furniture is, for me, almost an invitation to clutter. And clutter is, all the research shows a huge connection to psychological stress. Stress and increased cortisol levels that can become chronic, inability to focus that kills productivity. These are just some of the findings from the Mayo Clinic about what happens when you let clutter take over. So I think it's really the job of good design to have a clutter reduction strategy. And for me, that's built-ins. And more importantly, built-ins are incredibly connected to where we are, I think, as a society, with a dominant share of buyers, young buyers, who are absolutely immersed in this sharing economy. They don't want to own stuff. All this furniture they would have to buy in absence of built-ins is a ball and chain for them. And then there's the insanity of moving. When I look at what happens when you move, your average term of ownership in homes after we buy them is 10 years. After 10 years, the cost of moving the furniture can easily exceed its value. And then when you have built-ins, homes live 20, 30% bigger. It's like you added 20 to 30% more space without having to build it. And the reason they're bigger is often you're getting floor-to-ceiling solutions for storage, and you're using all the space where a built-in floats between two end walls. Built-ins go from end wall to end wall, and where built-ins float off the wall, often because they have to clear baseboards or other details, your built-ins are right up against the wall. So you're getting about 20, 30% more effective space for free or for the cost of the built-in. And the net is lower cost. The hard cost savings from that building those 20 to 30% more square footage often can pay for the built-ins, and you're paying for them with 30-year financing. So the cost is really low. The main options are window seats, entertainment centers, shelving, desks, dressers, closet storage, hutches, mudroom storage, garage storage. There's a litany of things you can do. And so the basics just work. Window seats and cabinets and shelving just are amazing getting rid of clutter. A lot of times there's items that we don't know where to store them, like blankets that we want to keep in a great room to sit next to comfort us in the winter. And so these are amazing ways at getting rid of clutter. Here's a window seat with a hutch in the dining room and floor-to-ceiling shelving. Again, these are just huge, huge space savers. Again, you see wall-to-wall use of all the space, floor-to-ceiling use of all the space. It's so much more space efficient. And because It's tighter and more, and it's right up against the wall. The spaces just feel so much bigger. Here's a sure thing for you. Virtually every one of the home buyers that you ever confront will want closet storage solutions better than this. That's a sure thing. And often we just put in the cheapest shelf and brackets we can in closets. There's some lower cost options you can do. We can put in storage in the closet. There are higher end ones you can do. But I'm a big fan of when I know I have a sure thing that will make my customer happy, I'm going to work the problem. I'm going to figure out where can I steal money from something that is not adding value, that's not adding a desirable user experience, and reinvest it in something that will. Take the space below the stairs. Here's a complete wasted space. Normally it's just for some storage right there. And look how it's been transformed into a home office. Simply by good design and built-ins, we capture spaces that otherwise have very little value. And this is a great space to work in just because of good design and how well it was executed. And trim is transformational. It doesn't have to be high cost trim. It just needs to create conditions for contrast between trim and colored wall paint, different colored wall selections for flooring materials. It has to be done commensurate with budgets. But again, there's lots of choices for good, better, best. But trim is amazing when it's done authentically, consistently throughout a home and appropriately throughout a home, what it does. Now, trim with built-ins and color and everything all work together just to create great spaces. I'm going to share with you my California home I sold so I can go back east and work on Energy Star. I bought this house, gutted it, and added 5 feet off the back right here in this kitchen area. And it made the kitchen go from basic to luxurious, which was really a big dividend. But I got my home office. Again, this was done in 1991 or 1990. But I got a home office right here. I have a completely built-in desk with leveraging all the space that's there and make it seem bigger. I was able to add a much more substantial island. And then even over here between the studs, I put a broom closet with also for some cleaning stuff right there. I took a space that was 0 square footage, the space between the studs, and create a broom closet out of that. I'm a built-in nut, so I'm going to use every space I can because all of it adds so much value. And then even in the kitchen, I'm always against corner cabinets. They're just expensive. They're hard to get to. The corner upper cabinets are almost impossible to get to. So I got rid of that space right here where there's turn the corner, and I dedicated that space to the adjoining room on the other side, the dining room, to create a hutch. And so creating 5 times more value in this room by getting rid of something that has a very small value in the kitchen. And of course, the refrigerator wound up looking much more built-in. There's that broom closet. But just all these designs, if you're wearing that optimization lens, how am I creating the better user experience for each dollar that I spend? I think you get to the right answers. Upstairs, this is a master bedroom. I'll show you the view here in a second, but the whole thing was create a view and then floor-to-ceiling dresser and shelving on either side of that view. This is my daughter's room. A little bump out gave me a chance for a built-in desk and shelving here, but stealing every nook and cranny to create a space and the illusion that a room that's small like this bedroom is so much bigger. There's that deck off the master bedroom. There's the indoor-outdoor living off the bottom. This is the 5 feet that I added off the back of the house, this one section right here. And this is the view from the master bedroom, which you can see, why would I not leverage this? Of course, it's the reason I bought the house. It was so undervalued, it was stunning. But again, all these things are about the same principles kind of work over and over again. And then so a house like this is not that big a house, believe it or not, but it just appears big because we got rid of the dining room and put the space in the great room. So where we have eating, dining, living together. We have indoor-outdoor linkages. We have varied ceiling heights, and we're kind of true to a basic hardware solution for trim and finishes. And we have use of colors and daylighting and expert lighting. All these things work. You don't have to break the bank. This is kind of a nice house, but it's still on the medium size in terms of luxury. Okay, I'm going to go through one more strategy. I'm going to break there and skip integrated systems because I don't want to take up too much extra time. But simple is so important to me. I want to just grab a few extra minutes if you'll put up with me. This, I just came from Seattle. This is the Mopop Museum. It's a museum of modern culture, if you will. It was designed by Frank Gehry. I hope I don't get sued, but everyone knows he's just designed some of the most complex buildings you can imagine. If you see this building today, all the seams are now getting black and stained, and the appearance of the building is really compromised, just because the complexity is so hard for the owner to maintain, even in this case, a city. And then when you're inside the building, I think the interior spaces aren't even very exciting. The dark, the materials, the colors, all the choices. It's stunning how the inside the building is so unexciting. And then they went through all this extremes on the outside to try to create something. And it's going to be a liability for the city, I think, to try and maintain such a complex building. In contrast, you go look at the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. It's just a basic cube. But the architects came up with this outdoor screen that is based on a African crown concept, and it's respectful of some of the historic traditions, but it shields the cube, if you will, from a lot of the abuse of the sun and glare, and provides a place to maintain and clean the windows off the framework of the lattice. And it's just a nice looking building because it's simple and true and authentic. And then here's Frank Gehry's house. I mean, it's stunningly complex for what it's trying to do, I believe. And look at this, you have maybe 800, 1,000 square feet of water coming down at this one point and this one point. And you have all the water coming down here. And even though it's Santa Monica, they get these incredible rainstorms in the fall, where it's just like torrential rains, and all that rain coming pounding up against these surfaces. It's just a complexity for what reason you have to ask, not to mention all the very difficult details where these different geometric shapes have to converge and be detailed perfectly to work. So again, I want the building to be maintained by the owner. Maybe this one's a bias, but I've gotten almost consensus on this one. Simple is a great best practice or great strategy. And the best practices are a simple floor plan, exterior, interior. On the floor plan, we care about the footprint and we want to optimize functionality. On the exterior, we care about the geometry, the architectural features that are functional, can create the interest, and authentic trim, color, and details. On the interior, we care about finishes and details that, again, are simple, authentic, and kind of make the space work. And so here's two designs. One on the right's mine, one on the left is just a standard floor plan I grabbed. You have 15 corners versus 6 corners. The only reason I don't have 4 corners is just to add a little privacy for this master bath section right here. But essentially, from the furnishings, which are missing from this floor plan, you can see how this house lives, all the storage, all the spaces. Again, I don't believe complexity buys you any real advantage. And here's an example of a low-income design I found from a group working in the South. And they're trying to create this recessed front porch. So the 12 by 16 recessed porch takes away about 200 square feet from the floor plan. And it adds about 24 feet of linear wall, 12 feet here and 12 feet here. In other words, if this wall was here at the outer edge, I wouldn't need these two 12-foot exterior walls. So I have 200 less square feet than this design, and I have more exposure to outside weather conditions. And the cost of the 24 feet of wall times the cost of the wall and the foundations, 2,600 square feet, $2,600 plus. And this is supposed to be affordable housing. Now, admittedly, it's built with volunteer labor and they can maybe get away with some of these costs, but I believe we should always come up with designs that can be built by normal businesses for the least cost. So this is, the complication doesn't need any value, it hurts the value. And I'm saying reinvest the cost savings into a much nicer front porch. And I love when you go to Europe and you see great examples of simplicity that's beautiful, it's authentic, and clearly it just doesn't take exotic details to create great spaces. So this is Portofino, Italy. A lot of movie stars used to hang out here in the 1930s, but and essentially it's just cubes. It's just big boxes, but with color, with authentic trim and roofing selections. And then the architectural feature that adds value often are these awnings at the very front where you can sit outside and eat and so forth. So Europeans had it figured out, and then here's a house in a neighborhood near me. You have 5 different siding materials. You have amazing complex geometry. You don't need all this complexity. Even the double height entry defeats the purpose of the protection of the entry in bad weather when rain can come in much more easily with all the extra height. So we see designs like this, and you have to ask yourself, what is this complexity buying us? And again, with landscaping as it matures, will often dominate many streetscapes over the architecture. And I love moving from fake to authentic details. Fake shutters drive me nuts. Authentic shutters just are always so much more appealing. So always when you go authentic details, I think it works. Here's a real lack of authenticity. The design assumes the street pedestrian will only see the house in 2 dimensions. But if I go just a little bit to the side, you see the return is vinyl, a cheaper siding than the brick. And so it's just almost like a billboard. Here's what we would like to have everywhere. Here's all we could afford on everything that's not the front. It's facade architecture. So we can move from facade architecture, which is unauthentic. It just looks like it's trying to fake a front, and start going all the same. Then get rid of the small, non-useful front porch and put in a real front porch. And in fact, this is what the owner did when the builder didn't. They reinvested the savings in the front porch. So you use architectural features that add value, that are functional, to create the interest, and be truthful to the materials that are within your budget and that speak to a greater authenticity of the design. Doesn't take much to create great simplicity that's beautiful. Simple floor plan, simple geometry, simple function, authentic details. Simple exterior, simple geometry, simple function, authentic details. Simple exterior, authentic trim, color, geometry, details. They just work. We don't have to make this more complicated than it is. Okay, I'm at a little bit 8 after the hour, so I'm going to skip this whole section and let you know integrated systems is really important part of how you get to great design. But I'm
Sam,
going
can
to
you
best.
go to your next event slide and share that with everyone?
Yes. I'm going to just wrap up with this little stretch here. 5 minutes.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so what I want you to do is realize that, again, I want you to deliver great design with consistency, but great design is not the same for everyone. So I'll give you my contact information. If anyone wants, this is the customized design optimization framework that has all 50 best practices for good design. And I'll give this, it's a tool where what I want you to do is put 1 to 5 next to each of the best practices relative to your preferences, your tolerances, your demographics, your climate, your market conditions, where you want to go. But what 5 means it's a top priority, 1 means it's the lowest priority, and score 1 to 5 for the granular best practices, then for the second tier granular, and then for the strategy. And score all these, this whole framework for yourself. And when you block out everything that's not a 4 or 5, that's you. That's your brand. That's what your design is, your design promise is. And you should commit all your designs moving forward to all these 4s and 5s, your top priority preferences for design. And then you will consistently deliver these user experiences. Hold your architectural team, everyone accountable to this framework because it's your framework. If you want to change it and add or delete, but you need a process. Remember I said about great athletes, they have a process so they always get to the outcome. This is a way for you to get to a great outcome. And also working in these action groups where we work and meet is a great way for you to start practicing doing this. And the recommendations that I'll leave you with are to immediately apply design optimization. Whether it's custom homes, production homes, multifamily, and maybe the group I care about the most, affordable. I go nuts when affordable housing doesn't have good storage. Why are you putting low-income families under all that stress? Or low-income homes don't have views. There's no reason why affordable housing doesn't have to provide great occupant user experiences. The other thing I want you to think about is prioritizing good design. When you have award and recognition programs, make it the top priority. You're not going to give an award. I don't believe it's what we did with the Housing Innovation Awards with Zero Energy Ready Home. We started with design as an entry point because we want to have the best ambassadors for zero or green or Energy Star. I would always make design an amazing, important top priority in any award recognition program. Also, your case studies that you bring forward should be your best designs, and you shouldn't just train in high performance. You need to consider training for good design. And so I can't say enough that we are not going to get our job done if high performance homes are not design leaders as well. So that's my complete wrap up. Here's the book. Here are the workshops that are coming up that I mentioned, the virtual, the in-person ones. Also, the next webinar I'm doing with Eva is June 14th, which is high performance at lower cost. I'm going to take the gloves off and share with you how you do high performance at much lower, much more cost effectively, and some decisions I would recommend. So I hope this was useful. Thank you for attending. And Aaron, back to you.
Yeah, and I just want to encourage people, if you're looking to put this into practice, I was able to sit in on the 6-week virtual session that Sam did. It's incredible. You bring your floor plans, you work through them. You've got Sam and the team giving you ideas. So that's really incredible. Sam, we're so excited to have you coming to the EBA Summit. That'll be September the 19th. I'd encourage everyone, get the book. It's going to be great. Sam, I think you'll be signing some books at the EBA Summit in Scottsdale as well.
Can't wait.
That'll be fantastic. So I'll look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks. And thank you as always. This is my second or third time going through this. I took a couple pages of notes again.
Yeah, it's a lot. People think it's obvious, but it's not. And
It's not.
You need a structure to keep working with, so you're consistent.
Well, I love the scorecard and thinking about that. Like, what is your brand? And it's the 4s and 5s that you put on the form. That's what becomes your brand. That's what you stay true to.
Right. I'm not telling you to do everything I say. I'm telling you to pick your own framework that works for you.
That's right. Well, it's fantastic. All right, Sam.
Great,
Thank
Aaron.
you so much. Talk to everyone soon.
See you next time.
Bye.